Hello again, my Geek Topic friends. I and my son Jacob made a video in which we reviewed the new Frank Miller book, graphic novel, Batman the Dark Knight Master Race. And in that review, both I and Jacob were somewhat laughing and chuckling a little bit about how lazy Frank Miller's art was in this book. And really his art is the worst art in the book and probably the worst art of his career in this new Batman Dark Knight book. So I didn't want to just say that because I can hear Frank Miller's hardcore fans rushing to his defense and saying, who am I to say that Frank Miller has lazy art? What have I ever done in the world of comics? What are my credentials? So I don't want to just assert that. I want to show you what I mean. So I'm going to show you three things really quick and to explain exactly why I think that artwork in the new book is so lazy. We're going to first take a quick look at the original Frank Miller art that sort of brought him into prominence into the industry, and then we'll take also a very quick look at some of his more stylized work later on for Dark Horse, and then I will show you what I'm talking about with Dark Knight Returns, and hopefully this will be a pretty quick video. But here's the first volume of Daredevil, which contains some of the all-time classic Frank Miller art, and I haven't picked any pages. I'm going to turn to a page at random. And you can see that this is high quality, somewhat standard, but high quality superhero art, not particularly different from other people's superhero art, but it's got a fine sense of drama. You can see the drama right here in this shot. He's got great panel-to-panel continuity. He's a great storyteller. All the anatomy is fully worked out. You can see that it's you know, I mean, it's not photorealism. It's comic book style realism, but it's very realistic by comic book standards. Very dramatic and very good storytelling. Excellent spotting of blacks, excellent use of backgrounds, costumes, composition within the frame, excellent flow. All these things, little things that artists worry about. Look at how fully worked out these faces are, and just the detail on it, the drama on the covers. This is a classic cover. Daredevil versus the Hulk, if you've never read that issue, that's such a classic issue. And everybody should have read Frank Miller's run on Daredevil, because if you like comics and you haven't read it, it's one of the all-time brilliant runs on any superhero title. And this is where Elektra comes from, and this is where Bullseye really came into his own. It's classic stuff. So that's the baseline. That's what brought Frank Miller into the industry and made him famous in the first place. Now, Frank Miller has experimented with his art, and he's changed, and he's become more stylized, and I have nothing against that. Although I would personally prefer if he would draw a more classic superhero style. I have nothing against stylized books. Now here's a good example of a stylized book. This is when Frank Miller really started to experiment and stylize his art and go in his own direction. And there's nothing wrong with that. This is excellent art. It's not any worse than Daredevil. It's different, but it's excellent. It's superb. And when you look at a picture like this, it seems simple. I mean, especially to a person that doesn't draw, but if to a person that does draw, you quickly realize that there's a lot more sketching and underdrawing beneath an image like this than the average person realizes. And these lines, I'm going to point with this, these rain lines, storm lines, they don't just come out that parallel and that straight by accident. And all the little splashing off and you know, all the details in here, that stuff doesn't just happen to look that cool by accident. That stuff has to be worked out. And sure, some of it is spontaneous in the inking, but there's a lot of underwork to this and a lot of working out. Now let's just look at something at random here. I'm not going to try to pick these pages. I want you to notice that Frank Miller, although this is very stylized, Frank Miller puts a lot of work into these pages. This stuff is very, look at that brick wall. Look at the amount, the sheer amount of lines that he is putting on some of these characters, and that's perhaps, and there's a great simplicity here. That's a great simplicity, but the simplicity is not lazy. It is absolutely worked out, deliberate to be dramatic, and here's an excellent example of a dramatic page. Okay, and that's just, some of this stuff, frankly, is just brilliant. Frank Miller, I should say, not Frank Lee. It's Jim Lee and Frank Miller. Okay, but yeah, I mean, that's not lazy. There's nothing lazy about this. This is a style. It's stylized, and you can like it, you can dislike it, but it's a fully worked out style, and it's a good storytelling style, and it works. It is effective, and it works. So I have nothing against stylizing your art. But like I said on the previous video, and I addressed this directly to Frank Miller, if you don't feel like drawing something, if you're not excited about drawing something, then don't take the money. Don't take the money and then just whack it out any old way and figure it's good enough. Now, there could make a lot of examples of this. The one I picked out, let me find it off screen here. Oh, I lost my bookmark, so I have to find it. Here we go. I didn't lose my bookmark, it was in there. Okay, sorry about bumping that. Now, here's a chapter. Well, I should point out that most of this book, and this is a book that's worth reading, most of this book is actually drawn by Andy Kubart, I believe, and Klaus Janson, who's the, Andy Kubart, Klaus Janson, and some other inkers. But there are these little mini chapters, and the Andy Kubart art is imitating Frank Miller's original Dark Knight art. And it's good. I mean, even though he's been asked to imitate someone else's style, and I really don't like it when companies say, draw this in someone else's style. I didn't like it when Continuity Comics told their artists to draw in Neil Adams' style. I didn't like it when DC changed the way Jack Kirby drew Superman's face by having Al Plastimo redraw it. I don't like that kind of stuff. But so he's drawing in Frank Miller's Dark Knight style, but Andy Kubart does an excellent job, and most of this art is pretty superb. But then we get to these mini chapters about Frank Miller, and this is probably the best example of what I'm talking about right here. This chapter that I picked is actually penciled and inked by Frank Miller. The complete art is by Frank Miller. Excuse me. Now, you can see when you look at this, no background, minimalistic backgrounds. Almost all the detail and variation was put in by the colorist. Okay, the quality of the line is very poor. The anatomy is not worked out. You know, the proportions are way off. A lot of this stuff is very flat. If it wasn't for the colorist adding depth to things, that would be very flat. This would be very flat. There's no perspective. You're sort of against operating in a formless void here of open air spaces. Now, just for a moment, look at these faces. Look at how piss poor that line quality is. Okay, the line weight, the quality of the line totally is just shaky and uneven, and it doesn't appear that there's any real underdrawing underneath there, that he really worked it out in pencil at all before he just started slapping ink around. And it actually gets worse as you turn the pages on this chapter. Yeah, take a look at the anatomy here. Take a look at, you know, he uses a big black so that he doesn't have to draw anything underneath the car. He doesn't have to draw the axle. He doesn't have to try and imagine what the underneath of the car looks like. He doesn't need to reference it or anything. The anatomy is piss poor there. And this is where it really gets awful. Look at how bad that anatomy is. I mean, just look at that leg. What the hell is that? Look at the torso. Here's where the torso ends, over here, okay? Do you see that? There's where the arm connects. The torso is like, it's shaped like a kite attached to, I don't know, a giant vagina maybe? I don't know what that is. Some tamales. They don't look like legs. And here we have, notice how he's just blacking out the eyes and taking lazy shortcuts every place he can. These hands he's basically wrecked, and yet never corrected. Now look at that muscle. Muscle. Did I say muscle? That's how Poppy said. Popeye says muscle. I was up all night, all right? I'm just coming off my night shift. But yeah, look at the muscle. The muscle. Look at this one. Look at the torso. Even the Superman logo, he didn't even bother to work that out halfway well. Look at this volcano. Oh my God. That's horrible. I mean, that is just horrible flat drawing like an 8-year-old would make of a volcano. And the colorist has obviously strained mightily to do something with that and put a lot of effort into it, and it still looks like crap, frankly. Look at this face. There's an inking mistake right there. See how he's blacking out these eyes? Blackout, 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 blackout. Forgot to fill them in. Forgot to fill them in, and nobody caught it, or nobody wanted to tell him, whatever it was, but he forgot to fill in those eyes black. That's not style. That's just a fucking inking mistake, okay, that was left in. Now look at how horribly drawn these people are. This face is actually okay. What is this that she's attached to? What is this thing? What is this? This is not a neck, certainly, and those are not shoulders. I don't know what this ball is up here. I mean, this is maybe a muscle for the Hulk, but it's certainly not connected to the shoulder muscle in any sort of reasonable way. And then we get this. These are actually two of the best faces in the whole chapter. Look at how lazy that hair is. Oh my God, it's incredibly lazy. But look at that nose. Now this is inexcusable. Inexcusable. This nose was in the right place, but he just bungled it when he inked it and left all the slop in there. I mean, you can take a little white correction paint and fix that, okay? That is not the way it should be drawn, no matter what the style is. That is simply a case of leaving the slop in and not bothering to fix it. And the same damn thing with these lips. These lips are horrible. They're horrible. Look at the line quality, how it wavers and doesn't, it's way off. Who has lips shaped like that? And line weight is the quality, everything about it is off. And then they have the big kiss, right? Well, if you've never tried to draw two people kissing, you may not be aware that it's pretty tricky. The artists that used to draw a lot of romance comics, that's something that they really had to work on, I think, because I've drawn people kissing before, and fitting the two faces together can actually be a challenge to make it look right. It's hard. It's the easiest way to do it is to get some photo reference and just copy the photo reference. But he had these two people kissing, but he didn't want to take the time to work it out. So even though their faces are not, there's no reason to black out their faces, there's no lighting reason, there's no shadow reason. I mean, the shadows are completely inconsistent with blacking out their faces, okay? If there was a black spot there, why isn't that same shadow falling on the hand and the neck? You know, I mean, this is just being too lazy to draw the face. And this, I mean, inexcusable. What's going on with this body? What is with this anatomy? Look at that leg. Where is the vagina? What is this? What is that? Little U-shaped, dog dish shaped thing. Is that supposed to be the bottom of her abs there? Because that's horrible. That is absolutely horrible. And this, what is this? What is this? Is that like the top of her ass? Because the bottom is down here. Okay? And what is this? Is that like the other top of her hips? See how that goes across at an angle like that? Okay, it should not be at that much of an angle, but it certainly shouldn't be that high. This line is completely inadequate. I mean, I could go through this and criticize this for hours and hours and hours. This leg is completely fucked up. You know, I mean, what can you say about something that's so lazy? This woman, by the way, is supposed to be an attractive woman. Okay, look at this profile. Who has a nose like that? Nobody, okay? He was just too lazy to fix it. And I'm sorry, but the line quality is shit. And then they go in for the kiss and he blacks it out again. At this time, the colorist threw a lightning bolt in the background, which at least might give you some excuse. But if the lightning bolt is all providing the light on the other side, and that's why you see the black shadow, then you have to be somewhat consistent with it. You can't have this in shadow and that not. You can't have the hair fully lit and the face fully shadowed. Hair and hand fully lit, face fully shadowed. That doesn't even make sense. It's just, and I have a feeling that lightning bolt might have been stuck in there after the fact, by the editor directing the colorist to try and make some sense out of that horrible and unprofessional shadow. Okay? All I can tell you is that if I took this art into a comic book editor's office as my portfolio and he did not recognize it but thought it was my portfolio and tried to get a job as a comic book artist showing this, I would get laughed out of his office. And then the guy would chew out whoever set up the appointment. But what he would tell me when I showed him this art is he would say, this art is not of a professional level. It's not at a professional quality. You need to go home and keep practicing. That's what an editor would tell me if I showed him this. So when I say Frank Miller's art in this book is lazy, yes, it is. I'll even just, that was the one I planned to show you. I will find you another one at random. And like I said, most of Andy Kubart's stuff is pretty good. You know, I like Andy Kubart's art a lot in this book, so I'm fine with that. Let me find another Frank Miller one. There aren't very much, because he didn't contribute very much to the art. Is this Frank Miller? No, that's not. That's a short chapter done by someone else. You didn't even want to do all of the short chapters. All right, that's Andy Kubart. Where the heck? Okay, this is a Frank Miller chapter. Okay. But I know it is, but I was trying to confirm that. All right, this has pencils by Frank Miller and inks by Klaus Janson, and the first thing you notice is that the inking is far superior to the lazy inking that Frank Miller was doing on his own. But I would point out to you that this anatomy is still completely wacky and off. Why is this knee pointing up at the sky over here when he's turned that way? Try to do that. Try to turn your leg like that, okay? Just try it. Why are these legs so out of proportion to everything else? Look at that. Okay, but it gets worse. Okay, now this is actually, because of Klaus Janson's inks, a lot better than the other chapter. Again, notice almost complete lack of backgrounds. But look at this. This page is a lot better. See that? Horrible, horrible, poorly worked out anatomy, but that is not as bad as some of the other stuff in here. Is this, did we go on to an Andy Kubart already? Nope. I think this is Andy Kubart here. I'm not sure that that's Frank Miller, so I'm not, nope, this is still Frank Miller. And you know how I know? Because look at this character. Okay? I don't know what kind of a shot he's trying to do here. If this is supposed to be a worm's eye view, then the stuff closest to the worm's eye should be the big stuff, not the head, not the upper torso. This is the big part of this drawing, and this part should be the big part, and that part should be receding, just like a skyscraper does when you look up at it. This anatomy is so off, I don't even know what to say about it. This guy has literally got his pelvis shoved halfway up into his torso. You know, I mean, if you, it's just, it's so off. It's just horrible. By the way, when you're standing, do your hands hang down to your knees? Mine don't. That's like monkey arms. That's ridiculous. And look at the way, the poor layout, the way this character is just squeezed into a place that isn't really appropriate to squeeze in a character. And they didn't even have to make room for a lot of dialogue or something. There's tons of wasted space in this shot. But yeah, lots of lazy stuff in here from Frank Miller, that's for sure. That's the one we already looked at. Let's see if we find one more example. I don't think I need another example. No, that's what, I don't need another example. That's what I'm talking about. That's lazy art. So, sorry Frank, I'm a big, big fan of yours, and I wish that I didn't have to back up what I said and show this. Honestly, I do. I wish I could just be raving about your new book and say how wonderful and excellent it is, but I can't. That's what you set yourself up for when you try to review things. You have to sometimes put things down. But yeah, so that's what I was talking about. So that's this video, and thanks for watching. I'll see you again some other time.